Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 77 of the Playoff Push Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Chris Collier, running back for the Raiders. How we doing?
Doing good, brother. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you got me on the show, man.
Obviously, Nathan helped set this up. That's my guy from Nathan Sports Rush. Helps me with so many of my guests, and he told me about you a few weeks ago. He's like, "Hey, you want this guy on your show?" I'm like, "Man, absolutely." I looked into your story, and it's remarkable. You grew up in New York, in
Yes,
Nassau
sir.
County. Started
Mm-hmm.
playing football pretty young, and then you went to high school, played football there. 10-2 record your senior year,
Yes, sir.
1,800 yards, 25 touchdowns.
Yes, sir.
Let's lead off there. What was that high school senior season like?
It was great. I got to give credit to obviously the O-line and my boys that helped me along that journey. Funny enough, the year prior, I was having a big season as well, but it got cut short because I ended up blowing out my knee. I tore my ACL, LCL, hamstring. So I knew that senior season, that was really like my last shot to really try to make college ball a reality. And I just knew I had to obviously lock in my rehab, lock in with my faith as well, because that's really what got me to where I am now. I was going through some really tough times during that season to get back. And I was just trusting in God and his plan for me. I was just putting in the work day in and day out. And that's how that season came about, man.
As I said, you grew up in Nassau County, and then you ended up going to play football at Nassau Community College.
hmm
Now, starting off as what I believe to be a fourth string running back at a community college, what was your mental state during that? Because that's
Uh,
something where I feel like it could get demoralizing at a point. How do you keep
it,
chugging on?
it was really demoralizing. I even had multiple talks with my high school coach, and I was asking, "Hey, man, is there any way I could get out of here? Because I don't know if I could keep doing this." It was really struggling mentally, spiritually, everything. I was in a rut. And one thing that I always knew was that I just had to keep my faith, keep knowing that the work that I'm putting in is going to pay off. And funny enough, when I got my opportunities, the few opportunities I did have, I made them count. And I remember it was like the first game of the season. I wasn't playing at all. I mean, I was a fourth string. I wasn't on special teams. I wasn't anything. I was just really just riding the bench. And then we just didn't have anything pushing. I mean, I remember the score was like 0-6, and it was like the third quarter. Our offense wasn't doing much. And I remember the coach put me in. It was my first play of the game, and it was a screen. And I remember I took that one to the house. I think it was like 45 yards. I was like, yes, this is like what I've been waiting for. Like, this is the opportunity that I knew I needed to capitalize on. And that's really what took flight. But unfortunately, like the next series, I remember they put me in, and then a turnover happened. I remember I was getting a flat route. The ball was a bit too high, tipped off my fingers. It was intercepted. I was like, oh, well, I'm back at square one. And then, the next game, the same thing happened. I didn't get into the fourth quarter this time. Same thing
Mm.
again. Screenplay made a couple people miss. It was against Monroe College. Scored on that play, and then the rest was history. I mean, they just started throwing screens to me, and that was just my little niche that I got the film from to make it to the next level, which was D1 at Wagner College.
Yeah, five receiving touchdowns in that 2019 season. You
All
scored
screen
six. You
passes.
scored six total. Five of them were receiving.
Yeah.
So it sure seems like that was like your little niche there for a bit.
It was. It was, man.
Then you mentioned heading over to Wagner. Funny enough, I went to Holy Ghost Prep in Philadelphia, and we have
hmm
a senior right now playing baseball committed to Wagner. So I just thought that'd be
Right.
a pretty fun fact to toss in there. The Wagner Seahawks. So you head over there, right? Going to D1 from community college as a fourth string running back in community college, that's like a crazy
Yeah,
transition in
it is.
itself. You ran for, a solid 83 yards in your two games before COVID. And then
Yeah.
it took a little while for the gears to get going again for the next football
hmm
season. And I heard about a lot of, some concussion issues while
Yeah.
you were at Wagner. Just can you talk to me about your transition from community college to D1 and then with that injury aspect tied in?
Well, yeah, it was a big jump. And the bigger jump was, we're a small school. So we already have like this was before NIL though, so I can't really make this as an excuse. But essentially, we're a small school, but the thing, like I feel like it was just like Wagner doing it. We had a lot of those money games where we played like the Power Five schools, like y'all, like Penn State, and like we didn't play Penn State, but we played Miami, Syracuse, Temple, Rutgers, like people we had no business playing. And a lot of those injuries, not only happened with me, but happened to some key old linemen that I had. And it was like a snowball effect. I mean, those games were in the beginning of the season, and then I was just dealing with, kids that were like freshmen first coming into it, going against, the big boys. And it's just not, it wasn't an easy sight for them to transition to, neither was it for me. And that's where all those concussions unfortunately came into play. We have guys leaving out on stretchers from playing against those big boys because the trenches is what makes the difference. And when the trenches are mismatched like that, it's like playing NCAA on Heisman mode, and you have a bunch of 60 overalls at O-line, unfortunately. I don't mean to talk about the guys like that, but that's essentially what's happening, and that's what was happening, and that's where those concussions were unfortunately coming in.
Yeah, I heard you say Miami and my jaw dropped. I was like, oh no.
Like, what are we playing these guys for, man? It don't make no sense.
Hey, those are the they played in the national championship this year. Miami is
Exactly.
terrifying regardless of the year.
Exactly.
You went from community college to D1 to D2
To
to
be
go
too,
play
I
for
humble
Lock
myself.
Haven.
Yep.
So now this was where you really broke out in the college scene. 11
Hmm.
games, almost 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground to add to a ton of good receiving stats. What was that like? What was moving down from D1 to D2 and then suddenly finding your spark?
After dealing with Wagner, I remember it was supposed to be my last season at Wagner, and it was a third game, and we had lost at homecoming, and it was just a very embarrassing loss because it was a game we should have won. And I remember there was just some talks between the coaches, and it was just something about like they didn't have enough, ammo to fight this gunfight that they had. They didn't have the amount of plays or schemed it right for the game to be won in our favor. And I remember I had like this thing in my head. I was just like, it can't end like this. Like my football career cannot go down in this facet. I felt like God didn't take me this far to take me this far. So ultimately, I ended up entering the portal. I quit the team halfway through the season. And this was where the rule came in where if you had entered the transfer portal before 4 games, that season didn't count. So I ended up getting that year back. And I remember I had went on this visit to Lock Haven. I went on to a couple of visits, like a couple small school D1s, D2s, but a lot of them just wanted me as like a third string, special teams type of guy. And I just knew that wasn't me. I didn't want to go out like that. You know what I mean? I wanted to be one of the reasons we won, or I just wanted to be the guy, to be honest. And I went on that visit to Lock Haven, and my head coach, Coach Mulrooney, who's coaching at Brown now, he had gave me a whole bunch of promises to make me the guy, all the carries, touches that I wanted, needed. And it meant a lot because considering, like you said, my Wagner stats and tape, it wasn't really showing or telling, but he had a lot of faith in me. And that's really what drove it into that type of season that I had. All the confidence that he had in me built up the confidence I had in myself. And I was really just able to ride on that and just, keep it going.
Something super cool is you were also nominated for the Harlan Hill Trophy that year, which is
Mhm.
essentially the Heisman for the D2 level. What was
Yeah.
that honor like?
Oh, it was something that I didn't really expect. With Lock Haven, when I went there, it was really just like I wanted to go there and have a good last hurrah with football. And if life started after that, I would have been fine with it. I would have been truthfully really happy. I would have been like, okay, at least I got my last good taste with football. But then all these accolades and awards started coming, and I was like, whoa, I I didn't expect any of this. So all of it was a blessing and an honor, truthfully.
I only mentioned one of them, but for the people listening who maybe don't know too much about you, I'm going to list off the remainder of those recognitions that we were talking about. Broke the school's all-time single-season rushing yard record. Three-time Conference Player of the Week. First team All PSAC. First team Division II All-American. PSAC Offensive Player of the Year. I can keep going and going and going. Just so you see like the scale of the season we're talking about right now.
Like that one season, man.
Like that's crazy. Basically
That one
every
season
accolade you could have possibly gotten as a halfback, you got.
I got in that one season, man. In that one season. Not to mention Lock Haven before then, before that year. I mean, they had damn near the longest losing streak in college football history. I think it was about like 40 something years of never going over 500 or never winning over one game. So I remember when I had committed there, my family was looking at me crazy. They were like, "You're going to another Wagner, just a lower level." I was like, "Ma, trust me. Like like the talks that I'm having with God, I know this is where I have to go and this is where I have to be." And God proved me right, and that was that.
And then you move to the next level and
Yep.
you head over to your pro day, 4.4840 and a sub 7.3 cone.
hmm
What's going through your mind during that? Just seeing these numbers and saying, wait a minute, what's going on here?
I think it was really I know as an athlete, I had the ability to do so, but obviously when you're going through those pro day preps and the numbers weren't always that. They were sometimes 4.6. I remember when I first ran my first one, it was 4.7. And I was looking at my trainer like, I gotta get to the 4.4s if I want to try to make this a reality. And he said, just stick with the process, get 1% better each and every day, and just stack the days. And that's exactly what I did. But I also believe it was the environment that I was in. I actually got granted the opportunity to go to Temple's Pro Day, which was,
Mm.
a Group 5 Pro Day, but they had the scouts there, and there was about 28 scouts there. So it was just the adrenaline, the environment, and just wanting to live up to the expectations, which is what ultimately led me to hitting those numbers, honestly.
And it panned out. Then you
It
head
panned
to the
out.
Baltimore Ravens as a
Yes, sir.
UDFA. You got your nice little contract, got some preseason action.
Yes,
And
sir.
then, you went through the trials and tribulations of being a guy who signs as the UDFA. You got
hmm
waived, but then you re-signed to the practice squad literally the next day.
hmm
You got up a few times. You got 12 rushing yards in the league to your name so far. So far,
So
keywords.
far. So far,
And
guys.
and
Cut me
after a
some slack.
while, and after a while, you moved over to the Raiders, and that's where you got that yardage. But
hmm
you're only the third Lock Haven alumni to ever play in the league, the first since 1987. Let's just talk about that earlier trek in Baltimore. Let's lead off there.
hmm
Signing your contract to preseason work to that waiving and re-signing. What was that roller coaster?
So essentially, when I first got there, it's funny because when I had that pro day, there was like 28 teams there, and I talked to 27 of them. The only team that didn't talk to me at that pro day was the Baltimore Ravens.
Whoa.
The only team that didn't talk to me. And I remember the day, I think it was day 3 of the draft or day two, they had sent my family a care package of just a whole bunch of Baltimore Ravens gear. And I was like, what? This is the only team that I didn't talk to, but they're the only team that sent me something. So I remember day 3 happened. As a small school guy, I wasn't really expecting to get called. I mean, I humbled myself enough to know that, what it is. They're always looking for the bigger school guys, the political nature of everything. And they ended up calling me in the 7th round while they were on the clock. And I was like, holy crap, up for to get drafted. What? But they ended up taking somebody else. But they called me to say, we just wanted to get a jump on the gun. We want to offer you da 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 so you could come here. And I remember I had got that call, and as I was about to sign a contract, well, give my verbal commitment, a whole bunch of other teams called, but I knew in my heart like they were the first ones to reach out. They were the first ones to want to take that chance on me, and I signed with them automatically. And obviously, when I went there, I had Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill, and then they had drafted a running back, Rasheen Ali, my guy. And then they had a couple other running backs that were already there as UDFAs the year prior. So when I got there, I was like the seventh string running
Whew.
back on the depth chart. During camp, I was getting one rep, maybe two every single day. And I remember I was just keeping my head down, working as best as I could, trying to do everything. I hadn't played special teams pretty much at any point in college. So me trying to learn that was just trying to catch up to the game and where it's at and how you make the team. And by God's favor, unfortunately, Keaton wasn't coming back in time, and a couple of my boys had got hurt. So I went from seventh to when the season was about to start to the fourth string running back. Put me on the practice squad to save some roster space, but then they ended up cutting the guy who was a third string, and that's when I was the third string. I mean, I was the backup to Derrick Henry and Justice Hill after week 3. So I
Whew.
had no time to develop. I just had to, and that's when they started putting me on special teams kickoff, and that's when all that came about. And I think I had 3 elevations, and they signed me to the active roster. For a small school kid that didn't even have this in his mind, now on the field with Lamar and Derek and Justice, and I'm catching returns and returning them back. It was a dream come true. Truthfully, it was crazy.
That's unbelievable. And you mentioned the special teams thing. Obviously, coming up through college and high school as a running back and then needing to learn that to averaging 24 yards a return in that 2024 season. Can you dive deeper a little bit into the difficulty of special teams?
Oh, you got to think about it. This isn't, you know, young adults you're playing anymore. You're playing against grown men, and these grown men that you're playing against, these are guys that have families, and they're trying to ultimately feed their families. So a lot of these guys, their main role is special teams. So you're going against a bunch of tryhards, guys that are really trying to make a name for themselves and solidify their roles. So it's a different mindset with special teams because most of these guys, this is the main reason that they're on the team. So that's the approach that you have to have, especially if you're not a starter or even a second or third string. You gotta make your ends meet somewhere. And if special teams is the only way you got to, that's where you're gonna go 110%, 120, 130. And that's just what it is with the special teams in the league, honestly.
What's the difference between special teams and taking snaps as a running back in terms of finding an opening?
Oh, so most of my special teams reps came on kick return, and that was the first year for the league implementing that, and that was my first year. When you catch the ball and you're looking out, I mean, all you just see is just a brick wall of bodies. And you're expected, once you catch the ball, you got to hit at least 21 miles per hour. Now you're running 21 miles per hour, hoping for an opening to come. If it doesn't come, you're waiting for a whacking to happen. But when it does come, you got to make sure that, obviously not run scared through the hole, not pitter patter your feet. And that's really just the approach I took. I didn't care what it took. I knew I was on the field for a reason. They gave me the opportunity. They had that trust in me. So I was willing to just put my brain, my body on the line. And if an opening comes, it does. If it doesn't, I'm running 22 miles per hour to somebody and trying to get some extra yards.
Watching Le'Veon, it was so easy to see him be
Hmm.
patient, wait for something to open. But on kick return, you can't do that. They're all
Can't
gunning
do
for
that.
your head the second that ball
Exactly.
goes off the kicker's foot.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the main difference, the main approach. Obviously as a running back, I've got a couple carries. A lot of the thing is being patient, but also knowing your track, knowing what you're looking at, and knowing what you have to read. So you have to do that. I mean, when I was at D2, I had about like maybe 2 seconds, a second and a half to read the hole. In the league, you got like less than a second, maybe like point
Mm.
0.5, because you could see that hole once you get the ball. And if you don't hit it in that moment that you see it, it's closing. And it's closing quick. It's closing quick.
Gotta have a lot of trust in the people in front of you too to hold the blocks
Yes.
long enough. Then you headed over to the Raiders in November of 2024, promoted to the
Hmm.
active roster for a little bit, and then you were waived again, and then
Hmm.
re-signed again.
To the
And
Titans.
then less than 2 months ago, you signed your future contract with
Hmm.
the Raiders. So my final question for you is gonna be, what's next?
What's next? My mindset is completely different. This year, obviously, when you sign a futures deal, you're basically signed to like a 1 year contract. You have your spot guaranteed until training camp ends. So your approach to the matter has to be completely tunnel vision, knowing your goals, knowing the system that you're going to have so that you can reach those goals. I feel like that's the biggest thing. You have to have a system in place, how you're going to train, how you're going to attack each day in order to get to where you want to go. But you have to fall in love with the process, not just the finish line. The finish line is making the 53 roster, but obviously with the system in play, you want to elongate that. You want to make it go as long as you can. Obviously, your body allows you to play. And that's just the approach that, I'm coming into this year with. Ultimately, it's not a do or die, but it's obviously make it, break it. type of season, and I just know what I have to do to make it.
Especially with, Genty in that
Hmm.
running back core. Can't wait to see what that
Exactly.
turns into.
It's gonna be great.
I guess we'll see what it is. That's going to do it here. Episode 77 of the Playoff Push podcast. Chris, any final words?
Uh, to the young kids out there, keep the faith, keep the push, keep the mentality always strong, and just keep pushing and striving for more. Because potential's there when you really tap into it.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Episode 77 of the Playoff Push podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jack Dobbins, and have a great rest of your day.